Mark Cuban was almost Vice President of the United States. Yes, that Mark Cuban, billionaire entrepreneur, Shark Tank mogul, Mavericks owner, one of the most recognizable business figures in America. Now imagine him standing shoulder to shoulder with Kamala Harris on the 2024 campaign trail. That alternate reality almost happened, until Cuban said, no. So why did he decline? What really went down behind the scenes? And what does this shocking political twist reveal about both Cuban's ambitions and Harris' desperation for a bold running mate? Let's break it all down. But before we go deep, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss updates on the biggest stories in celebrity, politics, and pop culture. Now, let's dive in. In a move no one saw coming, Kamala Harris' team reportedly approached Mark Cuban about becoming her running mate ahead of the 2024 election. And this wasn't just a casual conversation, it was official. Cuban told the Bulwark Podcast that he was asked to fill out vendor forms, the first formal step in a background vetting process for vice presidential candidates. This was serious. According to Cuban, they were actively looking for someone outside the political machine, someone with name recognition, business savvy, and crossover appeal. Mark Cuban checked all those boxes. But despite the offer, Mark Cuban declined. His reason? Simple. He said, I'm not very good at being the number two person. He joked that if Kamala Harris ever proposed something he disagreed with, he'd be like, no, that's a dumb idea. That kind of honesty might make for great TV, but it's a political nightmare. Cuban made it clear, he's not the guy who shakes hands, kisses babies, or recites rehearsed talking points. That's just not his game. In his own words, I'm not good at doing things just for appearance. I'm good at getting things done, but I'd be miserable in that job. He also added that Harris probably would have fired him in 6 days. This wasn't about fear. It wasn't about staying out of politics. It was about knowing where he works best, and where he doesn't. Mark Cuban has always thrived as a disruptor, someone who changes the game, not someone who plays by the rules. He even admitted on the same podcast that he'd be more interested in leading an agency like the Federal Trade Commission or the Securities and Exchange Commission, roles where he could make change without playing political theater. But being vice president? Nah, he said it plainly, I would not have been a good VP. That's not my strength. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Kamala Harris reaching out to Cuban suggests she was ready to take a massive risk. Why? Because she needed a jolt. Someone who could shake up a stagnant image and boost voter enthusiasm. Cuban would have brought massive media coverage, a fresh outsider image, and potentially even some independent and moderate voters. So why pivot to someone else? Probably because Cuban's bluntness, potential unpredictability, and lack of political polish posed more of a risk than reward. Ultimately, she chose Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, a far safer pick who represents traditional political experience and less media volatility. Let's just imagine it. A Harris-Cuban ticket. You'd have the first black female president hopeful backed by a white male billionaire who made his fortune in tech, entertainment, and sports. That's a wild combo, and it could have stolen headlines for months. Cuban's star power might have energized younger voters and moderates tired of both parties. But the same traits that made him attractive, his outspokenness, his independence, his lack of filter, are also what made him too risky. He's the kind of guy who might call out his own administration on Twitter if something didn't sit right with him. That's not exactly the VP tradition. What this whole situation shows is that even in a deeply divided political environment, candidates are still experimenting with unconventional partnerships. Kamala Harris was clearly thinking outside the box. And Mark Cuban? He proved again that he's not afraid to say no to power. It takes guts to walk away from one of the highest offices in the land. But for Cuban, the real power has always been staying true to himself, on his own terms. Mark Cuban didn't decline because he couldn't do the job. He declined because he knew he wouldn't want to do the job. And sometimes, knowing what not to do is more powerful than grabbing every opportunity that comes your way. So as the 2024 election heats up, and the political chessboard keeps shifting, just know that, behind the scenes, some of the most powerful choices are being made in private conversations that never go public, unless someone like Cuban decides to tell the story. And now you know. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon for more bold, behind-the-scenes stories from the worlds of politics, celebrities, and culture. Let us know in the comments, would Mark Cuban have been a good VP? Or did he dodge a bullet? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.